The Wrath of Pelée, how politics murdered 30,000 people in 2 minutes. What if I told you that 30,000 people died in just 2 minutes, not because a volcano erupted, but because politicians refused to let them leave? In 1902, the Paris of the West Indies became a crematorium, and the deadliest part wasn't the mountain of fire looming overhead. It was the men in suits who valued an election more than human lives. The mountain screams. When nature sends every warning possible. Picture this. You're living in the most beautiful city in the Caribbean, Saint-Pierre, Martinique. 26,000 people calling it home. Electric lights, horse-drawn trams, grand theaters. This place literally earned the nickname Paris of the West Indies. But for weeks leading up to May 8, 1902, Mount Pelée is practically screaming at you to run. First, sulfurous vapors start hissing from the summit. The smell of rotten eggs fills the air. Then come the steam explosions, ash raining down like gray snow. The mountain's summit crater, bone dry for decades, suddenly fills with boiling water. Here's what the media won't tell you. The warnings got progressively more terrifying. On May 5th, the mountain literally breaks open. A wall of boiling mud and water, traveling at highway speeds, obliterates an entire sugar plantation, killing 150 people instantly. When this death river hits the ocean, it creates tsunamis that flood the city's waterfront. But here's the truly spine-chilling part. Thousands of deadly fer-de-lance pit vipers come slithering into the streets, fleeing the mountain's slopes. These snakes kill 50 people, mostly children. When the island's deadliest predators are running for their lives, what does that tell you? Pause for a second. If you saw this happening in your city today, what would you do? Drop a comment below. The political conspiracy. How democracy became a death sentence. Now here's where this story gets absolutely infuriating. The French colonial government sees all these warnings and makes a calculated decision. Keep everyone exactly where they are. Why? An election. A simple runoff election scheduled for May 11th. Governor and newspaper editor Andreas Herard launched what can only be called a propaganda campaign. They publish reassuring bulletins calling the volcanic activity a grandiose spectacle. They encourage people fleeing the countryside to seek refuge in Saint-Pierre, directly in the path of danger. When reassurance fails, they deploy troops. Soldiers patrol the main road with explicit orders, turn back anyone trying to evacuate to the capital city. They literally trap people in a death zone. Scientists recently discovered the true scope of this conspiracy. The governor establishes a scientific commission the day before the eruption. But here's the shocking truth. It contained 0 volcanologists. The lead expert was a high school science teacher. Their job wasn't to assess danger. It was to manufacture scientific credibility for a predetermined political decision. The commission's report, published the morning of May 8th, declared the city completely assured of safety. Hours later, everyone involved in writing it would be dead. Have you ever been in a situation where authorities downplayed obvious danger for their own agenda? This hits different when you realize it's not just incompetence, it's calculated sacrifice. 2 minutes of hell. When physics meets politics. 7:52 a.m., May 8, 1902, Ascension Day. The mountain tears itself apart. But this isn't the volcano eruption you're imagining. Instead of shooting ash straight up, Pelée explodes sideways. A massive black cloud rockets horizontally from the mountainside at 400 miles per hour, faster than the fastest Formula One car today. The temperature inside this cloud? Nearly 2,000 degrees Fahrenheit, hot enough to melt copper coins instantly. Here's what scientists recently discovered. This phenomenon was completely unknown to science in 1902. They called it a nuée ardente, a glowing cloud. Today we know it as a pyroclastic flow, one of the most lethal forces in nature. 8:02 a.m. The cloud reaches Saint-Pierre. In exactly 2 minutes, the Paris of the West Indies becomes a crematorium. The force alone flattens 3-foot-thick stone walls. The heat instantly ignites everything combustible. Thousands of rum barrels explode like bombs, turning the city into a massive fireball. Glass melts. iron beams twist like spaghetti. In the harbor, 15 ships capsize or burst into flames. From 30,000 people, fewer than a dozen survive in the city itself. The most famous? A prisoner in solitary confinement, saved by the very cell that was meant to punish him. Which terrifies you more, the raw power of nature or knowing that people in power deliberately kept families in harm's way? Let me know in the comments. The birth of modern science. When tragedy becomes textbook. Here's the paradigm shift that changes everything. The destruction of Saint-Pierre literally created modern volcanology. Scientists had never seen anything like this pyroclastic flow. The 30,000 deaths became the grim dataset that revolutionized our understanding of volcanic hazards. This knowledge has since saved countless lives at similar volcanoes worldwide. From Mount St. Helens to the Philippines, every evacuation plan, every monitoring system, every early warning protocol traces back to lessons written in the ashes of Saint-Pierre. But here's what this means for you today. We're living in an era of escalating climate disasters, and the Saint-Pierre pattern keeps repeating. Authority figures downplaying scientific warnings, political calculations overriding human safety, vulnerable populations being sacrificed for economic interests. The silent ruins of Saint-Pierre ask us the most critical question in disaster management. When the next crisis hits your community, who gets protected, who gets listened to, and ultimately, who gets sacrificed? Don't let this knowledge die with this video. Subscribe to the Disaster Research Notes channel, because understanding these patterns isn't just about history. It's about protecting not only yourself, but everyone around you when the next mountain starts screaming. Hit that notification bell and watch our deep dive into another natural disaster that was really a human-made catastrophe. The patterns will shock you. The echoes of Pelée are still rumbling. Are you ready to hear them?